What's happening, Chaps? Welcome to the next episode of Chaps Chat with me, Dom.
Me, Ollie.
And we're with our mate Rob today. How you doing, mate?
Good. 2 hour drive up. Not bad. Yeah.
Appreciate it, mate.
Was that a good time or?
Oh yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, but like it's that last bit, isn't it? It's like you've got 7 miles and it's like 35 minutes. You're like, come on.
Yeah. You know what they say? It always feels quicker on the way home anyway.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, no. But thanks for joining us, mate. Obviously, just thinking when it was that we originally spoke via. It must have been a good few. Was it like August last year? Something.
Probably, yeah.
That sort of time.
Yeah.
So we're a bit further down the line now. So finally, good to have you here.
Christmas, New Year,
Yeah, that's
all
it.
sorts of stuff.
Goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know initially we spoke and got a bit of an idea around obviously your experiences with mental health as a whole, and definitely some interesting conversations to be had there. But we do like to start with a bit of an overview and an intro into yourself and your experiences with mental health, if that's all right.
Yeah, cool. So, for a bit of background about me, I'm a elite performance coach for a tech company in a state agency. I'm a dad of 2. That's been of 2 of 9 months. So I'm a dad of twins. They came into the world.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a. I celebrated my year anniversary with my partner with. We were 12-week-old twins, so it has been a roller coaster. So that part to it. Mental health has been quite an interesting one for me. At first, I never really believed in it, and then it started to hit on me that I did have that, and that was obviously when I lost my best mate. And I've had ultimate different stories within that, which has then led me down this journey of really just trying to work out, unlock it, spread awareness from just stuff that I've come across and witnessed that you don't really want anyone else to experience at the same time as well. So yeah, it's been a real interesting journey, and I think with anything mental health wise, I think it's not like you've completed it, mate.
Yeah.
Well done.
I don't think so.
You got your gold ticket, and that's it. So it's a work in practice every day for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think something I've said on the pod quite a bit is that like certain mental health experience that I've had. So like, let's say in the midst of COVID, had severe anxiety. I'm in a place now where don't really have that at all. And like in that, I was just saying it about 10 minutes ago, but in that place, I could never believe that I'd be in the mindset I am with it now.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, it's kind of an ongoing thing, but kind of I guess developing yourself and the tools you have. Just so if you are ever in that scenario again, you know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
But then I know there's people who I spoke to that suffer with anxiety and they've never really been able to come out of that at all or see any improvement in that. So I feel quite lucky that I've been able to see that as well. So it definitely is an ongoing journey, and obviously we're learning more about mental health and how it affects people as a whole, as a society as well.
Yeah.
Which I think is linked into the subject, obviously getting better but getting worse at the same time, which is a bit of a weird thing to say too.
Yeah, I think like I go off a mental health continuum model. So it's like your green, yellow, orange, and then red.
Mm-hmm.
So the like yellow and red is like professional seeking help. So you actually need to go and actually speak to a professional, or whether that's medication or something that needs to be done in a carefully worked out way. So there's spectrums within that. So if you're orange or red, there's certain traits within that you know, like getting angry, not sleeping, suicidal thoughts, all sorts of stuff like that. And then the other end of the spectrum is the yellows and greens, where green obviously naturally you've got a good mental health, and yellows you might be struggling, you might have a stressful period of time at work, which is getting you down, certain things that might be happening. So by using that mental health continuum model, it's sort of, anytime I've ever come across someone's really struggling, I've always tried to present it to them. Basically said, like, where do you feel you sit within that? Because then they can judge it based on the actions and emotions that are in each stage. And then you can then say, right, I can probably help you a little bit here, just chat to you and sort of stuff like that. Or if you know that there are in that orange or red side, you almost need to push into that.
To seek help.
Seek help and like professional help. So it's quite a nice one, because when you start to sit down in your own environment, you go, where am I on the spectrum today? And like, what do I need to do to get myself back up to green? And then it's almost like a self-awareness check-in with yourself on like, because ultimately it all comes down to you having to take that step every single time of recovery or getting back up to that green spot.
Yeah, so I'm sure that there's a lot of people that sometimes know there might be something wrong with them, but we live busy. People live busy lives, so they might sometimes like they feel like they don't have the time to actually sit there and think, how am I feeling at the
Yeah,
moment, you know? And having something simple like that must massively help when someone's actually trying to become conscious and actually take a bit of a judgment about where they are with things. And it's not easy to sit and ask yourself that as well. But I know that they use similar models to that. I think in therapy too, because I know when I did CBT I would have to like fill out, it was like number based, but it was
yeah,
more before every session, just so they can look at how you're feeling and measure that compared to how you were a week before. Because
yeah,
naturally, if you can sit there and say 2 weeks I would go as a red and now I'm a green, then that's great because you can see you've made some progress.
yeah. I mean, you have to rate it in that number chart or some spectrum,
Mm,
because someone saying, like, you asking someone if you're okay and you go, yeah, I'm okay. Like, what is okay?
yeah.
Are you okay at a 7? Are you okay at 2?
Mm,
And that does have that conversation. Hence why it works quite well in stuff like CBT, because off the back of that, when you turn around and say I'm a 5, someone says, okay, why are you feeling a 5 today? Not, I'm okay. It's
yeah.
like, it doesn't really go much anywhere further. Um, so even like fine, I got this off my partner Kel. It's fucking incapable of naming an emotion. So you should stop saying the word fine and
Mm,
try and use different ways. So even with Kel, we will have our own check-ins, our relationship. If she's feeling down or I'm feeling down or struggling, and I say, where you at today? And she's like, I'm a 7 today. I was
mm,
like, okay, what do we need to do to get to an 8 and a 9? Oh, haven't done running, or haven't gone to the gym, or I haven't had my own therapy, or whatever it might be.
yeah.
And then that creates that connection of what do we need to do
Yeah.
to work on it.
Makes you action something.
Yeah,
The main
massively.
thing, because like if you're unconscious of it, you're not gonna make any actions of it as well. So
And the unconscious is the huge step,
mm,
because like even when I didn't think I had mental health issues or problems at the time,
yeah,
I actually had massive
sure.
amounts, and that was gone. That was through a barrier of like bravado, arrogance, almost defense mechanisms I had in
Yeah.
place, and just used to attack that people in that verbal way. And at the time, I was thinking, yeah, people with mental health, God, they're weak, they're weak, they're
Mm,
weak. Um, so it's amazing, like when you start to look back and you think, holy fuck, like I was a dickhead then, but actually I
yeah.
had probably had worse at the time, and probably the people I was trying to belittle because they had something
That's
then.
it. Yeah. Most of the time, like I know when when I most of the time when people are not acting like, I know for me when I was not nice to other people in my past, it was because I was in the most pain. Like when I was in school, I wasn't the nicest person to some people, but I know that was in the time I was in pain the most.
Yeah,
So it generally tends to correlate on that side of things. And naturally, from like I know when we spoke before, obviously I know you mentioned you lost your best friend, which obviously is a very difficult thing to deal with as well. So I mean, I think a massive benefit of like for our viewers would be to, I guess, getting a bit of an understanding of how that affected you, but
mm.
also you're obviously in a great place now helping other people and obviously continually helping yourself too. So I think it would be really beneficial for people to kind of see how you get past that, because naturally some people losing someone consumes them for the rest of their life sometimes, you know.
Yeah, massively. So it was a really weird place when we went for this, where it obviously all happened, because so basically I lost my best friend Chris actually in February 2016, so it's coming up to another anniversary of his passing. Um, and he he was one of my first ever friends who saw me for who I was without judgment.
Hmm.
And I was quite a lost kid for years. Never really had a place anywhere, and I don't know, it was the way my brain works, I think. So he was like the first person who saw me for who I was and hung around with me.
Mm.
Um, so we were like thick as thieves together, and throughout our sort of secondary school years. And then we started to drift. I didn't know why we were drifting. I knew there was something that weren't right,
Mm.
and at the time I was contemplating committing suicide. I was in a really successful position and a really successful career, but everything was over consuming me. I had financial problems. I was pretty much like thinking every day, just smashing myself. I used to drive. I love driving fast anyway, but I
Mm.
used to just sit there every day driving back, thinking, smash into this barrier,
Mm.
send it. And that was the same thing. And at that time, literally, I was sleeping 2-3 hours a night. Literally a cycle. I couldn't get to sleep. I was just consumed and I was just exhausted. And some days I'll literally have one night where I'll just drop off at like 7 o'clock in the evening, and that will be my recharge, and then I'll go again. So going back to that anxiety and that thing, I was in that constant cycle of just stress. So it stopped me. It made me stop seeing my friends because financially I couldn't sit doing. They thought I was just sort of didn't care about them, and I just hid off into like, you know, I would say I was going to turn up for events and I just wouldn't show. So I lost my friends in that, and then February came and Chris and I were talking, but we kept on saying to meet up, and he'd gone out to Australia to live out in Australia for a period of time. And I saw him before he left, and it was like, I call it the Last Supper because it was the last time I saw him. And how it happened, so basically, my ex at the time, she had stayed at her friends, they'd gone on a night out, and I'd fallen asleep on the sofa like you do, have a couple of beers on a night, watching the TV, and within about 5 minutes of watching a film, you're out. And I remember waking up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, getting my phone, for some reason I clicked onto Facebook and I saw R.I.P. Chris Quenby. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I messaged the lad and said to him, like, is this true? And he said, I don't know if you know this guy, but like, Chris has died. And I was like, I didn't know how to process it. And it was just, so like my partner at the time, she was obviously asleep, so I was literally in the house on my own. I had no one to really speak to, apart from I had a friend in New Zealand who was best mates with him, and he'd lived out in New Zealand for years. And I messaged him and said, look, mate, have you seen this? And he was like, holy fuck. And then it was a cycle of obviously like trying to reach out to other friends as they woke up, and it just consumed me. I remember just being on my knees in my lounge, sobbing my eyes out, trying to work out how it happened. We thought he'd been murdered at one point, and then it was thinking like, how the hell did even that happen? I remember messaging the lad and saying to him like, can you take the fucking thing down, please? Because like, people don't know about this, so like, you've got to be conscious of that. And Chris's sister actually found out for a post on Facebook.
Fucking hell.
And she was pregnant at the time with her nephew. So it was just like that started to unravel. And I remember telling my best friend Lo, who used to go out with him, they were like best mates, and there was parts of the reason why they broke up was because I think it was because of Chris's mental health. So I had to tell her, and it just started to unravel. And then I just saw the devastation, because Chris was a beautiful person, so welcoming. Literally, you'd be in a room within 5 minutes and you were his mate. He was a decorated Taekwondo world champion, British champion, European champion. He was the guy that, you know, when you went to like a school disco, he was the guy that was the pretty boy that everyone wanted to be around, and I was his best mate, and he saw me for who I was.
Yeah.
Like roundhouse kicks, all sorts of stuff. Like, so it was a real surprise when we found out that he'd done that, because we were thinking, no, I couldn't have done that. And then it all transpired that Chris had been suffering with mental health for years, and they'd retained it as a family because Chris didn't want people to know about it. So I was struggling, but I didn't know I was struggling because wasn't consciously aware of what mental health really was at the time, but I was at the same time trying to contemplate suicide. I had my best mate who did it.
How
old was he?
29. So Chris, a couple of months before his 30th. And like, so when that happened, like, I saw the devastation of his family. Us friends started talking. I started to realise that fucking hell, I was going to be doing this something similar, and the devastation that would have happened around it. And that just really, like that, it was a moment in my life that I thought, I still today saying what Chris did has kept me alive. I'll always honour, like, Fight Train himself, the running I do for mental health, all sorts of challenges I do for mental health, is just in honour of him. And it's not like I haven't got over his death, it's more the fact of like, I wanted him to continually travelling because he loved travelling.
Yeah.
So he did fight train and put clothes around the world and all sorts of stuff like that. And any time I go travelling or I've had friends go travelling, I always take a piece of fight train gear with me. Pretty much every marathon I've done, I've ran with the 2 sets of hats. And fight train is basically, Chris was really good at martial arts and used to train people.
Okay.
So the martial arts brand was originally his brand. So whether it was in the UK or abroad, he'd train under that, and he had YouTube videos. There's all sorts of stuff still out there. So when he passed, I said to his sister, I said, can I just take over his brand and just not let it go with him? Because it'd be unfair. He really pushed that. So with the respect to the family, they basically said, yeah, just do whatever you require with that. So I turned it into a clothing brand for a period of time. We had it as a CIC. Obviously, COVID then hit, and it was really hard to then distribute some of the clothing. Direct print to order, cost of it started to get more expensive. So pretty much I turned it almost running into is a community where when I go running for now, I just run directly for Fight Train under the banner directly to charity.
It's a really good, honourable thing that you're doing for your mate. I really respect that, man. And I think it's so true as well. Like, we lost a friend, Tony, who committed suicide in like 2012, I think, was it?
Wait, somewhere
Around
a
then.
long time ago.
We was 16 at the time, and I think like I was going through suicidal thoughts and all that at that time as well. And I think when Tony did it was a big eye opener for me. Same as you, like you see what happens around you and the effects it has on people. And I think like I say the same thing. If Tony never done that, then I don't know what I would have done. But with him doing that, whenever I felt like suicidal thoughts and things like that in the past, I always think of him, and it's just a stop. It's like a barrier that says, "Nah, mate, like don't do that." You know, you've seen what happens. You know what I mean? So I think it's like it's a sad, like educational, thing for someone, isn't it? Because it's like, fuck me, you have to go through a loss like that. That's so like raw and so sad to stop you from doing that. It's like, fuck me, you don't want to ever be in that position to be doing it. So it's a crazy like, cycle.
And the what the hardest part of all of it is that when something like this happens, the community or the tribe around that one individual comes through, and it's like so much love people have for them.
Yeah.
And it's like that's I always found the struggle is like the people loved you for who you were.
Yeah.
You didn't
feel it.
It always seems like that, doesn't it? It's that like when it's someone's made that step, everyone I know, it's been that type of person, like someone who's like a mass, like no one's replaceable. Don't get me wrong, but someone who you like was a massive character. It always just tends to be that way, and it's like you said, like people loved you, and it's like I know for like when I was deep in depression, like I considered suicide. It was just like I think I was so just. I dwelled so much on the depression that it was like you kind of lose sight of everything else, and like I knew I had people that loved me, you know, and it's like I feel, and off the back of that, like seeing our friends like kill themselves, it does make you think like, well, like seeing the trauma that it leaves people with, but yeah, it's just like I guess it's just horrible. It's always it just always seems like someone who's just a big person in the group who's a personality or a character you just can't replace. But I think that what a really positive thing is that off the back of that, you're doing positive things, and it's a horrible thing to say, but if that helped you not to take that step yourself, off the back of that, that's a massive positive thing as well, that you didn't take that step. But obviously you're doing things like you've obviously got a community, you're doing the running side of things, and you ran the London Marathon, didn't you?
Yeah, so my brother basically ran the marathon in 2018, I think it was 2019. And obviously I'd had a few beers that night and thought, yeah, I'll just enter it. And I'd done actually a marathon before. So I'd done a marathon in 2012, Brighton Marathon. At the time I was really into my martial arts, and I thought, it's not hard, is it? Run a marathon. So I just turned up to Brighton Marathon. I ran about 8 miles about 4 days before. And some guy had said to me, you ain't doing it. I'll bet you 500 quid you can't do it but I'll donate to your charity. I was like, okay then. So I literally started running, and I thought I'd easy run at 4 hour pace. This is going to be a doddle. I was trying to run it at 3:45, and I run about 8 miles, and I ain't done running any time before that. And it destroyed me. So I was like, I'm never doing that again. Like literally blew my knees up. I had 2 or 3 years worth of proper rehab recovery because it annihilated all my knees, but I just continued doing it because it was like, I'm going to get that 500 quid to shut that guy up. I didn't care, so I just did it. So when I did that, I completely forgot that I'd done it, really. And then I went to like this event in London, and there was a guy called JP, and he really inspirational story. He was like a performance coach for sort of the big rich people out there. He was literally like, I think he had about 6 clients he looked after, travelled around the world and earned like £1 million. But he did a lot for charity, and he was 6 months before he was doing the Land's End to John O'Grove bike ride within X amount of days, and he had a head-on crash on his bike with a drunk driver, turned around the corner, smashed into it at 60 miles an hour. Right, so he was literally survived this ordeal, and he only survived because the air ambulance paramedic or something like that was on off duty doing some first aid course, drove past with all the gear and everything like that. Right, so this was mental, right? He's on stage 6 months later.
That's mad.
Yeah.
Like, and so I was sitting there. We had a coffee break. I got this text through saying, just before this event, congratulations, you got into London Marathon. I was like, fuck, I forgot about that. So I was thinking, do I do it? Do I not do it? No one knows about this. And then, so I went into that JP's talk, and he's on stage, and he's like, I need accountability here. I've got accepted into the London Marathon, and I'm running it. And I'm going to prove to the world, like, you can do this within that period of time in recovery. And I was like, anyone else doing a London Marathon? I was like, and then I thought, okay, better do it now.
Yeah.
Started it. And then I came out of there, my mum texted me and said, I got into London Marathon. And I was like, she was 62 at the time, 63, never run in her life. So she's like, probably mum's mum. That wasn't the fitness and sort of stuff. She liked doing walking, but that wasn't it. And I said, I've got in there as well, mum. So I was like, what an epic thing, like, to run the London Marathon with mum. And obviously, when we started to then go into, she started training, and within like 6 weeks, she was running like 12 miles and all sorts of stuff. Like, the determination of that woman is phenomenal. Then COVID obviously hit. So they had it virtual. So mum had done a lot of training, and all of a sudden it got postponed. So then we had to train over the summer for us, like, just winter training I prefer anyway. And then we got to October and we did the virtual London Marathon. So we ran cut down this river stretch and then ran up this massive hill my brother's got a pub. So we ran there. So I witnessed in that period of time seeing my mum at the age of 63 run a marathon. And it was phenomenal. And it still today is my biggest inspiration out there alongside Chris when I go out and do running. So they obviously allowed you to put it back a following year. So I thought, okay, I'd put it back to the following year, did the virtual, and then I started training to do the London Marathon the following year. But that run sparked something inside me. At the same time, I had gone through a breakup of 10 years, due to get married, all sorts of stuff. That broke down. I listened to David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me.
I just finished his new one. Actually.
Yeah, so I'm listening to that right now. Literally on the way up here, it was like 2 hours of David Goggins. Like, I feel like running up those steps and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And then so that was in October. I listened to Can't Hurt Me, and I did the 4-4-48 challenge in the April the following year. And I then decided to start running loads of marathons. So when I did the London Marathon, I did the Brighton 3 weeks before. I thought, I was going to run a marathon. Let's see if I can run 2 marathons in 3 weeks because I'm an idiot. And then I did that, and I thought, what else can I do? So, like last year I ran Manchester and Brighton back-to-back weekends, and then I ran virtual one, London virtual, last year with like 4-month-old twins. And fuck all sleep.
Just ask, how's that helped you in terms of like actioning and pursuing your other things you want to do in your life? Because I know for me, like doing things that are difficult on one side, like sometimes I'll reference that when I'm doing something else. I'm like, you've done that, like you can do this sort of thing.
Cookie Jar from David Goggins.
So I've only read his latest book. I don't know if I know about
that. I listened to Can't Hurt Me in a time where basically my ex-missus at the time we'd split, and she had walked out and left me for basically another guy. 10 years married, due to get married. But everything's led to a beautiful place where I'm now. I've got an amazing partner and twins. So I read that book at a time where we were in lockdown. I was at home, a bit unsure, but I listened to the book and I was like, fuck yeah, I ain't going to go over this and that lot. So I started running, listening to that, and I started to consume those. And David Goggins talks around a thing called a cookie jar. So the cookie jar is anything you've ever done that you've never thought you could either do and you completed it, or anything that you've ever has happened to you that you've got through it. So I started to fill my cookie jar with things that happened. Loss of Chris. Between Chris and that period of time, I'd actually, even going back to suicide, I actually uncovered someone that actually committed suicide and tried to revive him.
Fucking hell.
So I'd gone through so much trauma in that period of time that the trauma came my cookie jar. So when you're out running a hill and you're doing stuff like that, I just dip into the cookie jar because I'm like, I've fucking got more than this. Like, it's a bit of a wind. It's only a bit of sunshine, it's a bit of snow, whatever it may be. It's pissing down the rain. I love that. So I use that in my life now, that I bank the cookies, and whenever I need that little turbo charge out, I go into my cookie jar, pull out something, and I compare it with something else that I've done before in the past, and then that goes, yep, I know I can do this. And that starts to happen in life a lot, because then you could do it in any of your, when you start to have that anxiety thoughts, go back into a cookie jar and go, yeah, I know I've got anxiety, but I had this last time, and look what happened to me when I completed that challenge.
Yeah.
So running has massively helped with, when you achieve stuff like that, you know you're like, I did the Goggins challenge, which is 4-4-48 challenge, so it's 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Yeah.
That weekend was the weekend my ex was leaving me. So she had all of her stuff we're in the house. I'd come home late from a Friday from work, and she had put all of her new stuff in the house to take to her new house. And it was due to happen that weekend, and I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to do this challenge. So while she was out getting ready and packing and moving on, I was just like, I'm going to run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And that cemented myself that I've got a bulletproof mind.
Yeah.
Because that was a deal that we'd had a period of time when we were splitting up. And that sort of sealed that bit, going, I can do anything now. I just put my mind to it.
That's a great mindset to have, and I think it's important because it is true. Like, really, it is true. Like, it's like we can really do anything we want if we put our minds to it. It's just because when we try and change and do new things that are difficult, it brings a level of uncomfortability that a lot of the time people can't push through. But naturally, kind of restructuring your mind like that allows you to push through that, which is a massive benefit for you mainly, obviously for the people who are around you as well. But to get to that point, it's quite difficult, because I even, like, let's say when I'm in the gym sometimes, right? Especially when I've read his book recently, I think I'll be like I know that, like, I have the capacity in my body to push through this and do this, but how do I, like, turn that switch on? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's quite I need to read his other books, really, but I know that, because I haven't heard that cookie jar, because I don't think he mentions it in the new one, but definitely see how that could help as well.
And it's a good one, because it's, so there's another part, like, I went the day after Chris had passed away, I was doing fundraising for a local hospice, and I was doing a fire walk. And the guy who runs it he runs a charity called Time for Change, which is all around suicide basically. He lost his son basically to suicide to set that up. So the psychology of walking on hot coals is getting your mindset into a different way. So for some reason that day, it was a day after Chris had passed, I went to work because it's just the way I was. I didn't want to just sit at home. And I remember it being that evening, I thought, it's about 1,500 quid I'd raised. I thought, I'm not going to just not turn up for this, I'm going to do it, because Chris would have wanted me to do it. And so he done this whole thing about, he got people to stand up and did, like, the whole, like, chanting to try and get yourself in a different mindset. And then he did this whole thing of, like, right, I'm going to pick a volunteer. And he was like scanning around the room, and I was like, please don't pick me. And he's like, you mate, up you come. And I was like, fuck's sake. So he got me to stand on a chair, like, in front of about 200 people. Right, I'm going to try this thing. You've got to say, I'm a weak, I'm pathetic, I'm stupid. Say that over and over again. And he said, right, get off the chair and put your hand out. And then he, like, used his strength to pull down my hand. He said, right, get back on the chair and you're a gladiator in a gladiator arena, and you got to shout out, "I'm powerful, I'm amazing," like that. I was thinking, I don't like doing this stuff. I just did it,
Yeah.
And then he said to me, "Right, get back," and he tried to do it again. And obviously, the power of the force when you start to really pump yourself, it was different. And he basically said to the room, "Does anyone ever talk to themselves?" Right? And a load of people put their hands up. He said, "The people who didn't put your hand up, you're fucking lying, because I've asked you a question and you've spoken to yourself whether you want to answer or not, and then not decide to do it." So, off the back of that, I started to look into it, and I started to when I'm doing my like running and going up a hill, I've got Rocky and Reggie, and Reggie's just the inner bitch inside me that says you ain't gonna do this, and Rocky's like Rocky Balboa is gonna go, "No, come on, mate, you can do this." So in those parts there, you've got to I'd start to separate your mindset, and you go, I've got the champion and I've got the villain, and the villains come out to play. You've got to adapt and say, right, where's my champion? Yeah. My champion mindset's going to come through and tell my villain to say, shut the fuck up. Let's go and do this.
Yeah, mate. That's fucking great. That's fucking good. No one's ever said that to me.
So when you're in the gym and you've got to do that last rep and you're struggling, think you name your characters because they're more personal to you. Then you get into that. And that's what Goggins talks about in his book. He talks around the alter ego. He's got David Goggins and David Goggins. And that's like your two hybrid personalities that will help you push through some stuff, and that gets you into almost like an armoured, bulletproof mindset.
How I've been doing it so far, right, it's kind of like the one more step sort of thing. Like, you can go one more. And I find that does help. But I feel like there's room definitely for improvement. But yeah, no, I can see, that's good to split up as well. I'll have a think about later what I'm going to call mine, I think.
Trisha or something.
Trisha. Nah,
Definitely right.
Trisha Bebs.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way to look at it. Obviously, that book's helped you quite a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not the biggest reader. I struggle with it, but I'm like going through an ADHD like diagnosis at the minute, so kind of making sense why I can't fucking
ADHD,
concentrate
mate.
on nothing. Yeah. So like, I like have to watch things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Listen. Do you listen? Can you listen?
I have to be watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big watcher. Like but what's crazy is I read his book.
Did you? Yeah.
And it was like, so I'm the same as you. Like, I can't read. I started reading it, and like I'm thinking about dinner. I'm thinking about this sort of stuff, and I'll come back to it, I'm like, I haven't even read. I've just been flicking through pages, and I haven't even taken any of this information in. So I have to consume it. But I got the book at the time, and obviously we're in lockdown, and I just was like, right, I'm gonna read this, and it gripped me, and I was like, and when I have particular books that I've read in the past that, because my brain's focused on it so much, I've sucked it all in, and then it's taken on like thinking, this is good.
Yeah. I think like if it grips you, I can imagine it. But the problem is with me is like I don't even give it the opportunity. That's it. I don't. Like, I just struggle with it. Like I'm studying a course at the minute, and it's like you got fucking like mate, you've got to take it all in and that. And I'm the same. Like I have to go and reread back and think, what have I just read? I don't even know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like because I've got something else in my head. I'm not even registering.
What's the course you're doing?
I'm doing a mental health awareness course.
Oh, wicked.
So it's like a level 2, yeah. But it's like obviously going back to like from the 1950s and that, and then it comes to the end and asks you a question, what happened in the 1950s? Should have read that bit.
I mean, I'm building out a course at the moment for clients, and I even forget the videos and what questions and answers I'm supposed to be writing. It's like, I watch something or listen to it and read this bit, and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to be doing? I don't even know my own questions and answers.
Yeah. It's mad. It is mad. So, yeah, that book though, it sounds good, man. I might have to actually try and get involved in that. The cookie thing is a really good concept as well. And like running for me as a whole, I love running as well. I do enjoy running. It's probably like the only thing that actually like I can concentrate on and I actually be grounded on doing. That's why I love doing it.
Do you run with headphones or?
Yeah, I run with headphones. Sometimes not though. If I get up early in the morning and I'll go to the park, sometimes I don't because it's just nice and peaceful.
Oh yeah. The park.
Yeah. So, but if I'm like on the roads and that with cars, I'll put headphones on. Do you?
Nice. Yeah. I'm going back to the brain. I actually listen to motivational. There's a thing called Fearless Motivation, which is like loads of albums, and they've basically got like speeches or talks of people, and they put it over running tracks.
Cool.
So as you're running, you've got like just different motivational talking that's going through, but it's got a beat to it as well.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it works really well because like when you're trying to go up a hill, like and you listen to it, you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. I'm a bit crazy. Like like literally the other day, where I live in the middle of the countryside, we've got a Bruderhof Society around the corner. So these people were like going out on their Sunday walk. And I didn't hear them, I didn't see them, so I'm running along going, fuck yeah, I can fucking do this, fuck yeah! And they're like, and I went to the side, and I'm like, morning, and then I carry on running, like, and I said to Kel, like, people must think I'm fucking crazy, especially when I did the Goggins challenge, I was like 4 o'clock in the morning, I was like, I'm fucking David Goggins, like, and I'm running along like icy roads, and I'm thinking, yeah, but it does, for me it helps me, because going back to like the ADHD brain, I have to have that sort of music of some sort to try and get me going, or my inner chat starts going ahead.
Obviously, it's interesting you both say that, because I'm quite different on like whether I'm running or especially when I'm in the gym. Sometimes I listen to music, but I actually feel sometimes when I don't as I say, I don't really get anxiety really anymore, right? But when I have headphones in, sometimes I don't know whether it's the fact that I can't hear what's going on around me, but it'll make my anxiety shoot up like that.
Yeah.
So sometimes in the gym, if it's quiet in there, I'll train with listening to music, but if not, then I tend to have it without it.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Even when I'm running, when I run on the road, I never used to have music.
No.
I don't know. Each their own, really, innit? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I can see why that's a little bit different from music, though. Do you know what I'm saying? Having like, I'm talking like house beats and stuff like that. I've been listening to, not like someone like, come on, mate. Do you know what I'm saying? That's probably gonna have a bit of.
I can't do that because I'm a slow runner. I claim that because I run longer distances, so I can't have physically that house beat music because I start to run at stupid paces. And then, like, I get 5k down the road and I'm like, I'm screwed here. Like I've been running way beyond my own capacity, so I have to have like a certain beat just to keep my heart rate at a particular rate, just so I don't overexert myself.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I'm not even running 5Ks, to be fair, so there you go. Maybe I'll need a bit of your music if I do run a 5K.
I done that yesterday though, I can't remember, I think I had Sonny Federa on, who's like a house sort of DJ, yeah. And then I was on the treadmill yesterday doing a 5K. And mate, I ramped it up to like 12.5, the speed. And I was fucking blowing, man, and I was sweating.
Started flapping, flying away.
Yeah, proper like that, mate. I was like saying to myself, like, come on, just push, yeah. And there's a woman next to me, and she's like, calm down, mate, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But mate, after that, I put my hands on the heart rate things, and my heart rate was at like 175 or something.
That's high, innit?
Yeah,
that's high,
proper,
bro.
Mate, I was running fast, and I was like, oh, fuck.
I was listening to something yesterday, and it said when you're at 150, your body goes into chaos. Like, because he was like, it was a guy on Joe Rogan recently, and he was like, he did a form of, I don't know what it was, he did coaching where he would train like law enforcement officers, right? And he basically put them through their tests, like the tests, and he was like, I'll see grown men cry, or just like not even cry. Really, he said he was like more like, you know, like when they're like making noise because their body's under so much stress, and he was like, that happens at around 150. So the fact that you're blowing at 175 and you felt good, mate.
Well, I always like that. Base it off like, I think if 160 is okay if it's at.
They say 220,
220
and then you minus your rage, and then that's your like max zone 5 max running.
Oh, is that yeah? Oh, so that ain't bad then.
And then you zone it down. So like zone 2 is a good zone, which is like 85% max.
Right. Okay.
And that's like you can run and talk, and you can almost go into like autopilot running.
Right. Yeah.
And that's like your ultimate thing to be in.
Okay, well, yeah,
so 150 don't sound too bad.
No, 150 don't. Yeah, but it depends on the age, innit?
Oh yeah.
Because if you've got someone they're beast and they're like 40, 50 years old, like then
it might.
170, then it's the max.
Yeah.
And then 85% starts to go into that.
150. Yeah. Right. Okay, I'm with you. All right, that's not bad then. 170. That's probably like my max then. There, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So. Yeah, that's alright. But I always get like, because I've had health anxiety in the past year for years. Like I need music, right, when I'm running, like, especially, like, 5Ks and things, because otherwise I listen to my heartbeat, and I fucking shit myself and think, fucking hell, mate, you're gonna go over, like, so I need to, like, take my mind off that, because it's like, your heartbeat's gonna be fast if you're running anyway, do you know what I mean? But it's like, I just worry myself, and I'm like, am I doing too much, though? So it's like, I need something in my head to take it off, like, even at night time when I go to sleep, sometimes I have to put music in my ears, mate, because I listen to my heartbeat too much, and I'll be up for hours. Yeah. And then I focus on it, it starts to get faster, and I'm sweating and shit. And you know what I mean?
It's like, health anxiety is such a fucking vicious cycle, isn't it? It's like there might be nothing wrong with you. You start worrying about yourself so much, you fucking make something wrong with you. Like literally, like mate, you had the same thing as me. Like it's funny because not funny, but I speak to people who've gone through that, and obviously I went through it as well. And like one of the first times I had that like proper heart palpitation, I took myself to hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack and that. And like, obviously that wasn't what was happening. Like, but mate, like my neck was just getting like all tight and stuff like that. And it was no way to. It's no way to live like that. No way to live. Like the quality of life when you're suffering like that all the time, just fucking
goes down. It's the worst feeling ever, mate. Ever. I was having such bad panic attacks where I thought, fucking, this is it. Like I'm actually gonna die. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
So I've started to research into neuroplasticity, and they were talking around like the loops within the brain, and they're talking. It talks around stress and anxiety in it, and they were saying that you can have your coping mechanisms for anxiety to calm your anxiety, but until you change the loop in your brain, it will always be triggered.
Yeah.
So like, you have to go back to that root and try and work on almost the core part to it rather than like the avoidance of it.
Yeah, 100%. But that's what I had to do as well to stop the panic attacks. I was getting them frequently, mate, and I thought, fuck this, man, I can't live like this. It was so bad. Even in work, and I had to like leave and shit, and I thought I can't do this. So like for me, I had to sort of go back and like sort of like process the actual feeling of having a panic attack and like go through it step by step as to why it's making me feel like that. So like the next time it'll come on, it'll be like a trigger in my brain then where I'm like, nah, mate, like this is just you panicking. Like, understand it's happening and calm down. But for me, like that's it, and I haven't had any since, to be fair. Like my health anxiety is kind of
that's good,
going,
mate.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
it's like, yeah, man, people have these panic attacks and things like all the time. I feel it for them, mate.
Yeah,
fucking hard.
So like when I was when I was in my primary school years, I suffered panic attacks and I didn't realise it.
Really?
Yeah. And I suffered it in silence, and it was always the same trigger. Like we'd just have this assembly hall together, and I was what, I don't know, 8, and the assembly hall together, and in the assembly hall, we'd get it all together, and then I'd just start to feel the sickness, feel dizzier, and then go off to the toilet, and literally sometimes I'd actually be throwing up.
Really?
Just from it all, because I didn't know how to regulate it, and I didn't know where it came from, and then that took me into my teens, into my 20s. And it was a really weird thing, and actually, I worked it all the way back to actually primary school years and why that was happening.
Mad.
And then when I realised that, it stopped.
Yeah.
And it's mad.
Yeah, and fucking hell, that's young, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was 2 points to it. Was one, I remember, like we were, like you do as kids, like I think I was making faces, and it was like in the middle of a musical school assembly or something like that, and one of the teachers grabbed me and dragged me outside and said, right, I'm going to get you to do the recorder in front of everyone. I was like, sir, I don't know how to do the recorder. He's like, I don't care, I'm going to embarrass you. And that lodged into my head at that time, so it locked in. But the second time was where I went to primary school was near Pfizer's in Sandwich in Kent, and at the time was when they had Viagra kick off, so we had all these American and all these Canadian kids coming over. And the parents, obviously, in pharmaceutical, they were minted.
Yeah.
So I thought we were rich as a family, or good, well off. My dad was working in a bank. But compared to these kids, like, they were like, you ain't rich, you're poor, and all sorts of stuff like that. So as a kid, I took it on the basis that I had no self-worth and that one event. And I took it through all of my teenage years, and there were certain events that happened which caused that. And it was only when I worked back and looked into it, and actually my partner Kel said, right, we're going to work on this, because she's trained to be a special needs child counsellor. Like, try this concept, and I went back and I was like, holy fuck, like, didn't even, like, going back to what we were talking about subconsciously, like, it was lodged in there, and it was a memory that I hadn't even thought about, and as soon as that memory came forward and I came through, I was like, wow, I haven't had one since.
Oh mate, like your subconscious, like 95% of what we do, it comes from our subconscious. So I've had like hypnotherapy where it's like someone's there, I've given them subjects, they got into my subconscious, mate, and it's like when you watch it back, it's like it was like someone different. It was like me talking about me, but like calling myself Dominic like that. It's, I was like, mate, it's nuts, but it's mad insightful though, because you actually like you pull stuff out and it's like that you wouldn't usually, or maybe stuff that you don't think about that might be affecting you, something like from far back in your childhood. And it was like I experienced some like visualizations of scenarios that were quite like it was almost like there was a lesson in there, but it was like they weren't like exact circumstances that had happened, but there was like, look, for example, one of them I was outside my old house and like I was speaking to my mother about something, and there was a mad lesson in that one for me. But it's like the subconscious is such a powerful thing, but it's like it's amazing, not in a bad way, I guess, that as children we're so, I can't think of the right word, like so open in terms of our minds that even two occasions like that can have such a long-standing effect on someone. And like no one really thinks about what happened like 0 to 10 years that frequently unless there's something to go back and massively think about most of the time. So I think maybe we need to pay attention more to what's maybe happened earlier in life to change what we're experiencing now.
Well, like that up until the age of 8, your brain is such a sponge that most mental health issues that are in adulthood are, I think it's like something like a stat about, I think it's up until the age of 20, it's like 75% of mental health cases in your later adult years have been formed before your age of 24.
Really?
And I think it was something like 50% of it has come before even the age of 8. Something crazy, like a stat like that. Like,
do you know what it is? It's like, so basically, like as I mentioned, I meditate quite a bit, so I'm going to get them mixed up here. But you're naturally, when you're asleep, your brain's in a certain type of brainwave, and then when you wake up, like it's like when you, like say when you first wake up, I think it's either alpha or theta they call it, right? And it's like your brain's basically in a half awake, half asleep mode, but that's when your it's most easy to impact your subconscious. So when you're a kid, basically when you're born, you're in the lowest of brainwaves, so you're most susceptible to take on information. And as you get older, until the age of about like around 10, that's the age you go to secondary. That's when you come into the brainwaves, which are like the most active. So if you looked at them on the chart, there'll be slower ones, and then there'll be like quicker ones with squiggles. And so that's why when you get more into your analytical mind, is probably the best way to put it. So that's why when you grow up, it's so easy to take on information, and that's probably why that people hold issues from when they're a kid with them now, just because they've taken it on then. But you know, like I bet you can say, because you're doing a course at the moment, you try to learn something new now, it's fucking 10 times more hard than it is when you're a kid. So it makes sense in that respect, I guess.
Difficult, mate. Yeah, I've always struggled with like studying and all that anyway, do you know what I mean? So like this is like a challenge in itself for me, and I'm shit with like deadlines and that as well. So it's like, mate, these units are due like every 3 days and that. I had to push extensions on them already.
Especially ADHD and procrastination.
Mad,
procrastination is the worst trait of ADHD. I've got my best mate Ash. He's ADHD, and me and him always laugh because of like our brains and why we're best mates with each other. But like we'd go out, like I don't know, it'd be like we went to Benidorm a few years ago, and it was like shit shirt night. And rather than just having a shit shirt, he bought like 7 shit shirts because he couldn't decide which one, and bought them all with him. So like it's crazy when you start to look at like some of the traits of like, especially when you go through that. Like I do a lot of courses. I'm doing a master's in coaching and mentorship at the moment, like equivalent to it.
Okay.
So like I'm going back to school, and it's like you said, I'm reading. That's the stuff that they give me learning wise. So there's no videos to watch or anything. So I'm like reading it, and then trying to turn it into Harvard reference and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, this is one of the biggest challenges I've gone through trying to learn that.
Fucking hard work. And do you know what gets me as well? Like when I'm doing the assignments, like the exams, the way they do the questions, it's like I'll answer the question, take time on it, cool, and then the next question I'll be like, what the fuck? I think I've just answered that. And it's like, give another 3 examples. And I'm like, I just struggled to get through that. So I have to I'll go back and check the question and move the question. Like it's mad, mate. But like it's they try to catch you out, don't they? So it's like it's hard work, man. It's hard work.
Well, fair play to the both of you. Like it's been a while since I've done any type of course, but hopefully, well, not hopefully, that's the wrong way to say it, but there's a course I want to do in the near future. So, to be honest, I'm just not looking to pay for it right now, to be honest with you. And it's not something that, because I know that there's obviously avenues you can get funding through and stuff, not something you can do that for. There's not actually, I looked at the only open unit, it's like about herbalism, just got quite into like herbs and stuff like that, and it's like, there's no actual like degree you can do on that for like I looked at Open University, they don't have anything specifically for that, but there's like courses outside of it that are degree equivalent, I think, that you can do like privately. But I know, do you say you're doing a course on coaching at the moment?
Yeah.
So I know you've got a personal coaching service that you run anyway, so it'd be good to know a little bit like about that, because I feel like we've had elements of it, like that cookie jar thing, which would be great, and I feel like anything like that would be good for people to know.
So there's 2 parts to it. So I've got a coaching page called Coaching Matters, which is I have under my Instagram page, and that's just a personal website that anyone can go to, and there's videos, stuff to read, watch, all sorts of stuff. You can just, and it's just there as a free resources thing for anyone out there. It's stuff that I find interesting. For I'm sure that one piece someone might read it and it might change their direction. So I just cram all the stuff in there, and when I go back to having an ADHD brain, I'm like watching it. I'm like, God, it's amazing. It's a place where I just chuck it in there. So and the coaching mentor, and I do like NLP master and all sorts of stuff. It's just an interest I really have in it. From a professional career wise, I'm purely within the property sector.
Okay.
So I work with a tech company where I'm a performance coach for leaders going through a digital transformation.
Oh, really?
So it's really interesting topic, because I'm dealing with estate agents trying to put them in from like 1980s to like, this is how the modern world works with data and getting them to unlock their identity. So with that, it's still the same parts as a qualified coach you'd go through. You'd have to get the leader to unlock growth mindset, the processes around that, getting their team on board, activating leadership skills they probably haven't done before, getting them to think how their business operates differently. And when they change the identity of their business, they've got to understand how the team are going to go with that, how they deal with that, how they manage their data in the form of like, what do they do, data extraction, how they maximise their data, and then like getting them to unlock content and stuff like that. So when you have someone who's never ever done any content form and trying to get them to write content around their business, like you then have to get them to unlock certain things about that individual before they can do that.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated. I originally went into training to be a counsellor, like my partner Kel, but as I started to do counselling, I actually really enjoyed like person-centered counselling, which is Carl Jung's theory, and it's all around putting the person at the centre and then being the expert, and you're the person to unlock it. And a lot of coaching theories come off person-centered therapy. So off the back of that, I started to go, I think coaching is more for me than counselling.
Okay.
So at the moment, I'm just in this journey of doing that, and at the same time taking different exams and qualifications and learning new stuff. And I've started to almost get to a point where I've almost found this thing that I'm interested in doing, which is called it takes the CBT part, so it's cognitive behavioural coaching.
Okay.
So rather than looking at particular triggers that are around therapeutic side to it, it's looking around people who are already in that have healed and want to do that unlocking stage. And sometimes they might have limiting factors around like, procrastination, getting a bit more self-aware, being too perfectionism, all sorts of stuff like that, and getting them to unlock their true authentic self with the blend of different models and different things I've found that then align with basically the slogan I always love is become the person you deserve to be, and that's what I always stick by. So it's basically just working with loads and loads of people, getting them to reach their true potential.
That must be great. It shows
Awesome.
like seeing people improve, and it's like being able to know that you've obviously been able to help that and facilitate that on their journey too.
Massively, and some of the clients, I'm very, I literally get involved with a client's life in the fact of which is personal. It says that's the thing that I always found struggling with sometimes with therapeutic counselling set. They always say you've got to put this barrier up, and you have to be professional and qualified. And I'm thinking the problem with that is, unless I'm my authentic self with you, you're never going to give your full self to me for us to go on that journey together. So there's always going to be that resistance. So as much as a therapist is trying to say, open up, it's I know, I get why, but that coaching old school techniques are that way, but new way I'm trying to do it is that we coach with love and then we drive forward, because I've seen clients who are they've massively transformed their business, which has then meant their husband can change his job and work with them, and then they've got some more time with their kids and they go on these holidays and they move their houses, and it's not just the materialistic side to it. You can see that it's changing a whole family's life and their staff and their teams, etc. And to be able to go on that journey with them and see that and share that with them is brilliant.
Yeah, that's really rewarding. Yeah, that must be nice to see, man. That's such a good thing that you're doing, and especially to have that as your career that's wicked, mate.
I fell into it though.
Yeah.
And literally just fell into it. I was 10 years. I was a sales and lettings director of an independent estate agency, and at that time, like, I was working ridiculous hours, and then I was having suicidal thoughts, and like I was conflicting. And it was a weird when you start looking back at that, and then at the same time, I was just doing random things, like I'd become a chairman of a networking group, and people go, "Why are you doing that? It's just free." I'm like, I don't know, it's just an enjoyable thing to do. And then like I did something else, and everyone's like, "Why are you doing that for free?" And I was like, I don't know, just somewhere down the line, I think it probably would click together.
Yeah.
And the company I work for now, like the CEO of that company, I was just met him in an award ceremony. I just literally read his book. It's one of the only books I read it and thought, this is fucking the bollocks. I'm going to do this as an estate agent. And I really got his concepts because I had found an interest in it.
Yeah.
So I sat at a table on an award ceremony, sat to the left hand side, looked at him, I thought, I recognise that geezer. And I literally bought 3 of his copies of his book. I sound like a proper stalker. Like, I bought 1 copy. I was like, this is amazing. And I went to the bosses of the owners of the company that I was operating. I said, look, I'm going to go on this crazy journey, and you're going to come on this journey with me. But like, you as the owners need to understand that when I'm doing this stuff, this is why. Read these books. One read it, and the other one just didn't care. But that's just the way he was. But 4 months later, I was sat in an award ceremony, sat next to the guy that was the author of that book. And now he's now a very close friend of mine, as well as my boss. So me and him got chatting.
Yeah, when you work for him.
Yeah.
Wow.
So me and him got chatting, and then the platform that we've got, like the tech platform that I coach agents within, was building it with him, like as a coach, as an estate agent's mindset. And then I kept on a line and thinking, I knew somewhere down the line, I thought, there's an opportunity here. If I take an opportunity as a company that comes up, I'd be stupid not to.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I was driving like from Kent up to the north, like Enfield way. I was doing a Dartford crossing every day for like 6 months, there and back. It's like 5, 6, 7 hours a day travelling. Did that, and then COVID hit. I actually went back to my old company because I was still with Mike's at the time. There's like some white knight savior because they were having issues. Went back in there. I thought, fucking hell, why have I turned back here? Like, and then when I went back there, my boss said to me, like, Mark, I work for now. He said, "Do you want to work in sales anymore?" And I said, no, because by the time of then, I'd gone through fight training, I'd gone through that process of wanting to help others out there and go on that journey. I said, like, I like building relationships, but sales isn't for me. In the sales of what people want, sales for me is like building a connection with someone. And I said, I've really started to really enjoy this coaching side that we had done through COVID, like with helping clients and stuff. And he said, why don't you just become a coach then? And then they just created a position for me, and I came back to the company.
Yeah.
And then now we set up. We're back to release a thing called Estate CX, which is a whole learning, coaching platform, all sorts of stuff for estate agents. But just fell into it. It's all like alignments of stuff. Like,
it's meant to be by the sounds of it, mate, isn't it?
It's mental.
It's from the actions you make in life, really. It puts you in certain places, isn't it?
100%.
That's why. But fair play to you, mate, obviously.
Imagine that, though. That must have been like proper surreal, though, isn't it? When you're sitting next to him.
Well, I sat next to him, and then to him, like, this is where it's interesting. Like, I was nominated for a People's Award, like top 10 people in the whole country of estate agents, like 40,000 estate agents. Didn't win it. And then I won an award for like the whole of the area for like lettings. Like, I've gone up against massive corporates. So to him, I was sat next to him, and then to him, he was like this young lad's like mid-25s, like winning these awards and stuff. I think we just realised we had the synergy of the same mindset, and that's the reason why I get on so well with him, because we just got same values, same morals, and that's what I think you need to work with in a business and relationships in general based off those alignments. But like the alignments of stuff is crazy. Like even like I'm a manifestation of from my partner Kel. Like she's gone for a whole healing journey, but she basically sat down like 4 years ago and decided that she wanted a guy similar to me. She didn't want all her past relationships. She wanted to go from mainstream teaching into special needs teaching, and she wanted to give birth to twins called Ted and Erin.
That's mad.
So when I first met her, I went round to her flat, and she had this voodoo, I call it a voodoo fucking picture with her. I was like, oh my god, looked like was it Outlaws? What's that?
With the blonde guy. Charlie. Yeah, I know.
Charlie Hunnam,
yeah.
So like, he had his like little bit of a mousy beard and hair like that, and I was like, why have you got? He's like, I'm trying to find someone like him. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, she's got girl boy twins, special needs counts thingy, trained to be a counsellor, new kitchen, etc. So I met her, and within a year, we found out we were having twins. And she'd gone from mainstream, quit her job, never done special needs teaching. She said, right, I want to go into this. And just as about a month before she was leaving special needs mainstream, there was a teaching position part-time teacher position came up in a special needs school. She always wanted to work at. It's like her dream school. Didn't have the confidence. Said just go and apply for it. Got it, and then they loved her, and they've gave her a full-time position a few months later. So I was literally like, holy fuck, like, so can you just manifest a lottery now? Like, because the twins came along, like that was a seal on the deal. Even to that, like, they all said we were having identical twins. So we were like either girls or boys. And Kel was like, I've got a feeling that it's going to be girl or boy. And I was like, but they're saying that they can only find one umbilical cord. She said, oh, but my psychic said to me, no, they're wrong. It's going to be girl or boy. And then a couple of days before Christmas, went to have a scan, and the sonographer was like, I think that's a girl, but I don't really know. And I was like, holy fuck, like, which? Like, so yeah, like, when you start to look at that stuff, like the alignment of stuff and their journeys of all sorts of stuff, and like even where I am now to where I was 5 years ago, you sometimes have to lean in and have faith with like what you're doing is somewhere gonna line up, and you're gonna get to the position of where you have, but you've just got to first you've got to remove the inner voices that usually you have from that are usually from people who've told you that you can't achieve that, not actually what you can achieve.
Yeah.
So you need to cancel that out, and also you need to have making sure you're sat in the environments of the people who will help you in that growth mode, not be in environments where people are out of their own fear will tell you no, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't know, like, I work in sales as well, yeah. Like, I've always sort of been within the sales, but like in the construction industry. And it's like, since doing this and like realising the actual benefit of the feeling that I get of helping someone, it's so like overpowering. So like my main interest is in this. You know, it's like it's really grown on me like for the past year that we've been doing it. So like I would love to be in a job where I was putting my energy on this full time.
Yeah.
Obviously, like when you've been in the industry so long, it's like that's all you sort of know. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's tough, but it's maybe something down the road. And like I'm a manifestor in that as well, of like finding the right partner and things. And I believe like you just go through all these like shit situations, like you did obviously with your ex. But how it's worked out for you is like it's meant to happen. Do you know what I mean? Because you wouldn't have your twins and your amazing partner now. So it's like. Yeah, man. So like, I'm a big believer in that as well, and I just think like there's no time on things. Do you know what I mean? It will just come like when you really
it's
need
the
it.
Right time.
Yeah,
that's when
it.
Like when you look back in hindsight. Like I look back in hindsight, and I think it's all fucking. It just played out in the right way, exactly the right time to do as meant to. I also think that you change as a person. Like certain lifestyles I've had previously, without going into a bit more detail than that. Like after that lifestyle, people would say to me, "It's like you're a different person."
Yeah.
But in a sense, you are like it's like when you look at people changing, like people's biology's changed as people. Like for example, I'm reading a book at the moment, and it was about people, an element of it who've miraculously healed from things like cancer. And they looked at the person's biology, and the person's biology had changed. Obviously, in regards to the cancer, but I mean just in general in their brain compared to before. So I generally believe that these things, they do make us change as people. When you get closer to what you truly want as yourself, you're probably going to see different avenues opening up for you, because that's the really the journey you're meant to be going along. And that's what I believe. But naturally, all these bumps along the way, like they have meaning in their self as well. Like they're there for a reason, because you learn lessons off the back of all of them. Majority, I find from my experience anyway.
Definitely,
yeah.
I think like even them experiences, like the bad ones as well, which you don't realise are bad at the time because like you're obviously oblivious to it until something bad happens. But I think like just learning from them anyway is your manifestation into what you want, because you've learned the lesson of no, that's not the route that I want to go down anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I'm alright with that. Like I'll take on the bad to get the good. Do you get me?
Because you know now. You like give me a bit of that bad. I know what's on the other side,
That's
isn't
it? And now it's like, but I know what to look for. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, nah, I don't like that. Like, I've had that, and that weren't for me. Do you get me? So fuck off with that shit. I don't want it, mate. So it's like I'll take the bad to get to the good all day long. But it's just a rough.
It's good what you're saying though about identity though, because that is like so true.
Am I not like in a different like it's so mad like and I like even like just the mindset in terms of like things like how it don't line up, but don't get me wrong, is like that transition did take place over a period of time at that time, and I think when I didn't know that had happened really until like years later off the hindsight. I knew I'd changed, but I didn't know I'd actually changed as a person. Like I just became like a much nicer person in general, like a more loving person, and I feel like the deeper I go into the podcast, the deeper I go into spirituality, because that's one of my main interests outside mental health. Like they're probably on par with each other, and it's like I just feel myself changing in the right way in that sense as well. Like just the thoughts I have, like let's say if someone did something bad to me now, I just think like, oh, what are they going through, but I feel sorry. Like I feel sorry to be in the mindset they would want to do that, or I understand. I understand.
But how many conversations do you have though? Because I'm in the same. How many conversations when someone that happens to you? And you got someone there, and they're fuming. You go, I wonder what, and that person goes, fuck what they're thinking. Like,
majority of the time.
A lot, and you end up having that conflict because like you're conflicting with people about the person who's actually done the action to you. Like maybe it's because of X, Y, and Z, and usually that is. You know, everyone projects shit onto each other.
I take comfort in the fact that I know people make decisions most of the time based on what they feel like that they formulated in their mind is the right decision. Like that may not, like to us that could look like completely wrong decision on face value, and some of the times it is. But you got to understand, like they've justified it themselves somewhere. Like it might happen to me, but that's if they've justified it, it's for them. I don't need to understand why they've done it. Just because something's happened to you, like people think that understanding sometimes some things will help, and I'm not saying it won't help. But for me personally, just having that understanding that they can justify it to themselves takes away that need for me to justify why it's happened to me or how I feel about it. Yeah. And that's not me not understanding my feelings. The feelings I have that I need to understand, I will. But I can only understand the actions I make. I'm never going to understand fully the actions of someone else and why they do things. But you just got to know they've got to the point where they've done something. But one thing I will say, deeper I go into this and deeper I go into spirituality, I find it that I resonate with less people a lot of the time. Not in a more overall way, and I mean that by the sense like you'll hear people with certain views. And it doesn't have to be like an outlandish view. I could tell you scenarios that I've heard from people, like people in my like family have said something, right? And it's like to them it was just like an almost like a light joke. But for me, I was more like I could never find myself saying that at this point, or like before I might have laughed at it because it was a joke, but now inside because I actually have so much compassion for maybe that subject, I just couldn't laugh at it. Yeah. So I find that which is a sad thing, but a good thing at the same time, because I feel like you resonate with the people that you need to when you have the right mindset, and like you said, who is around you in your immediate circle is very important as well. Tribe. Yeah.
Like you find your own tribe.
Yeah. That's how we are as humans. Like that's our genetics to be in tribes. Like. In a sense, or to be in a community. That's why people love being in a community. People are like, oh, why do young kids like? We would never expect him to be in a gang. Okay, well there was he had no community. He found a load of people that liked him, that he had fun with, and he went off and did what they did. Is that so? That's not hard to believe. Yeah. Like you could apply that to so many. You could apply that footy down the park. Yeah. The same thing. But we like to complicate all things in life. But really, truthfully, like most of the answers sometimes are quite simple, and usually it's ourselves we need to ask the question. I find more than anyone else. Yeah. But yeah, like it's quite a transition when you actually start doing what you feel like you're meant to be. It's a real transition. It usually takes you away from what you're used to a lot of the time.
100%. I think difficult. like I said, like we've changed. You changed identity, so you can't stay the same and want to change. It's never going to happen. So really, when you look at it, you can never be. If you're always trying to grow and move and formulate your true oneself, like you can't ever. Your identity is always going to change because it's like you learn something. Like you've done, like you never stay the same. You literally probably this weekend. You probably try and do some of your course, try and cram it in. You'll learn something new. You've changed. Yeah. You change the theory, change the thought process. Like you said, you've done like. You do certain particular spirituality, you read something, you do a course, and you change it to a new version of yourself. So, like, I think people, you can't ever expect, like, a lot of people I think struggle with is two things I'd probably say is, like, expectations versus reality. What the expectations are happening right now versus the reality of what you want it to happen. The moment you realise that the expectations and reality are out of sync, it stops in a conflict. Like, every time you look at anything, you got to look at it going, are my expectations against reality unrealistic? And if they are, what do I need to do to change it? And then the second part is expecting to stay the same, but want to change. Yeah. And like you said, like, you know, if you want to get more fitter and healthier and have a different mindset, a bit more cleaner mindset, then don't go out drinking with your mates because only you are going to wake up and go, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, they're not going to feel your thoughts for you.
No, exactly. So I think massive thing around that. I like a couple of people said to me, you've changed in the past, like not changed for the worse, but changed for the better. And I remember like when I first met Kel, and one of her friends' partners, like mates, knew me, and he said, when she asked, he said it when Kel's mate asked him, "So what's Rob like?" He said, "Kel you wouldn't have liked Rob years ago, but he's a different person now." And again, like in those moments, is like I was projecting and I had real anger thoughts, but then again, that was like based around a load of environments that I really shouldn't have been within.
Yeah, and it was the same for me in terms of environments I should have been within, who I think drew a different side out of me, who wasn't really my true self, but pain will make you do a lot of weird things sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
No. Well,
it does, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's been great speaking with you, mate. Yeah, I think we could have, if you had more time, we could go on for longer, definitely. So maybe down the line we can have you back on at a certain point. That would be great. But thanks a lot for giving us some of your time.
Always.
Yeah, appreciate it. What you're doing as well, the work and everything, mate, is amazing. Your page is really good. Obviously, we'll tag Rob's page on our post and everything. This episode will have all your links on the YouTube as well.
Yeah.
If that's all right with you. And yeah, everyone just go and have a look at his page. Very motivational. Obviously, Rob does the coaching, so if it's something you're interested in, give him a shout. And we'll go from there.
Appreciate me having on.
All right, thank you very much, Rob.
All right, well, thanks a lot, chaps. It's been Chaps Chat with me, Dom.
Me, Ollie.
And I'm mate Rob.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.